Hello, and welcome to the third episode of Company of Heroes History. Today we have another game based on Angoville. This time in the north we have Gnug315, an excellent player who was featured in the last video as someone who wrote a guide for the Semois pin, which I think was very popular even from the beta of the game. And in the south we have InuBasha, who was another player who was extremely popular when the game first came out. Very proficient with both Axis and allies, and an early favorite of mine, it has to be said. Now, right off the gate, we have an interesting point here. InuBasha has chosen, despite being in the south, to move over here and wire off this section here. This is an interesting point. Perhaps it would indicate that he is prioritizing protecting this munitions point here over capturing this fuel point. It's very interesting. This is different than what the meta was at the time, which was absolutely to focus on these fuel points and try and get observation points down as soon as possible to help you get to either Shermans if you were the Allies, or to get up to that nice mass of Stugs if you were playing as the Axis. Now, InuBasha has done something different here, which is very interesting to me, and in fact, it may have worked quite nicely. It might be stopping Gnug coming here and harassing this. Oh no! So Gnug is obviously very happy to see this here, but has also double layered it himself to stop InuBasha getting through there later. And is clearly prioritizing protecting this fuel point. Very different now. What we also saw, which is different, a little bit different between the two teams, is InuBasha went for a 1-2-3 pioneer start and chose to move out with his first pioneer, which is a little bit different than what Gnug decided to do, which is to stick with the two engineers and use his first engineer to cap. Now the difference between that is that you get a slight capping lead if you go for the 3 builders at the start. Or InuBasha is able to get into that house. It's going to be tricky there. You need to make sure you don't run down the sides. There's lots of windows. Oh, it's going to take a lot of damage there. Yes, as I was saying, they're going for the 3 pioneer start. It gives you a little bit of a lead in capping. However, it does mean that the early engagements you're likely to be slightly down on these really bulky units here, such as the Riflemen and Volks Grenadiers, and it can put you off slightly. And you see this played out on the map right now. He's been able to take a few more bullet points, he's been able to get a cut-off, but I can't see an engagement that he will win if Gnug brings his attacking units together, his fighting units together, these 2 Rifleman squads, because there's only one, so the second one's only just popped out now. So Gnug has a lot more firepower on the map than InuBasha does. Having said that, this capping lead has been quite successful. You can see that there's absolutely 0 resources being received by InuBasha right now. He's not going to be able to take any. Oh, but this is a little bit of a fight over here. Oh, it looks like InuBasha was capping there and therefore taking a lot more damage from these engineers at short range, went down in short order. On the right-hand side, we see a little bit of an awkward engagement here with 2 Volks Grenadier squads on either side of a Rifleman squad. He's already lost a few models there and is fighting at a difficult range here. Oh, he's chosen to go into this house. Now, this house is not a great option. You can see on this side, there's only 2 windows from which the Riflemen can shoot out of. So they can actually don't do too much damage fighting out of this window here. If you go into here, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 windows in this side of the house. This one over here is 1, 2, 3, 4 as well. So this is one of the poor ones to choose. Having said that, InuBasha has chosen to cap under fire there and has lost a lot of health on this squad. It may go down. No, he has retreated just in time. Now, what do we have here? It looks like, to me, that InuBasha is really placing a lot of focus on keeping this point cut off. This is a very good way of restricting the amount of resources that Gnug is able to get. Ooh, this is going to be a tricky engagement, though. The Volks at short range here are really going to struggle against the Riflemen. He needs to retreat those as soon as possible if he can. In fact, it's the Rifles that retreat first, seeing a second Volks Grenadier squad again. Seems to be that Gnug is really emphasizing preserving his squads at this stage. Looking at the map control again, it looks as though Gnug has not only put an observation post on the right-hand side field, but also the left-hand side field. So that's 400 manpower he's placed into that. That's a squad and a half, you could see it as. So it's no surprise to me to see him losing a little bit of firepower on the map and losing a bit of map presence and being pushed off in this way. Having said that, it has prevented InuBasha from being able to get any fuel income whatsoever, meaningful fuel income, apart from this +5 down here. So it'll be a long time before he starts to tech up to those more advanced units and more punchy units in the mid game. We've seen a lot better, apart from the Pioneer squad that was wiped on the left-hand side, we've seen much better squad preservation in this game than in the first 2 episodes. This says to me that even just in the month or so between the game being released and this replay here, I think the level of play really increased. The first 2 episodes, there was an awful lot of squad wipes going on, and this is going to be a big engagement here. We'll just come back to that afterwards. We see 3 Rifleman squads here against 3 Volksgrenadier squads, all converging. This Volk is in heavy cover. This one has not quite managed to get into cover, and there's only 1 Rifleman squad is in cover here. Oh, this Volks is really going down quickly. It looks like it might go down. It's trying to run. Oh, I jinxed that, didn't I? Saying the squad... Oh, saying that the squad preservation had been good. This is a very awkward engagement. These 2 Volksgrenadier squads, surprisingly to me, didn't really take any damage at all. That's an interesting engagement there. We see that these 2 Volksgrenadiers only lost 1 model between them, and a lot more individual riflemen were lost. However, Gnug was able to take out a full squad of Volksgrenadiers from InuBasha without losing a full squad of his own. As we know, reinforcing squads is much more efficient for manpower than building new ones. So I think we'll kind of call that an even engagement. But having said that, we can still see that Gnug has not been able to get any meaningful income whatsoever. He's been cut off on this left-hand side for the entire game and is now close to losing the entire right-hand side of the map, including this observation post that he spent so much manpower investing in. These upgraded Pioneers make short work of the observation post and are able to take it out. They'll be capping that now, and we could shortly see the income really raise up for InuBasha, and he can start making that tech in the mid-game. Gnug, sorry, coming back on the map though. Another rush of 3 Rifleman squads here. It feels a little bit like there's not enough... Oh, nice Panzerfaust there. It feels a little bit like there's not enough units on the field for InuBasha at this time. We can see 1 unit is down here chasing off some engineers. 1 was over here on the right-hand side helping to cap. And oh, it looks like we have a unit here. I can't quite see what it is. It looks like... I'm sorry, that was a little bit... That might be a Pioneer squad, or it might actually be an MG. Hard to tell through the window. At any rate, that is a squad that could have been helping out a little bit in this early engagement. Aha! Here's an MG now. This would have been very helpful in that early engagement with that group of 3 riflemen pushing forwards. Really could have put an end to that engagement very quickly and kept this cut-off intact. Having said that, he has been able to chase off the riflemen anyway. 1 squad anyway. 2 squads went to the south here and are beginning to cap these points here. But I really think that InuBasha has been very powerful to this point, keeping that cutoff intact. We see that Gnug has been able to tech to the motor ball, but as you can see, nothing is yet queued. So he'll be waiting, and with absolutely no points, he'll be waiting for a long time for the, I think it's 25 fuel for a quad, or 30 for an M8, to be able to push out onto the map and push these units back. We also see that InuBasha has brought this MG straight to this top house here and put a pin in place on this side of Gnug's base. And we also, oh, this is an interesting thing to note. We also see InuBasha laying down a few mines on this main road here. That's an interesting point because mines were extremely underused in the early days of Copy of Heroes. Today they're an absolute salient feature of the meta and have been for at least a decade. But in the early days they weren't used that much until, and again we may review later in the future, Challenger Lee in particular popularized using a lot of mines as the allies. And that was really when they started to catch on. This rifleman squad's done a good job of cutting off here. In the meantime, we see an awkward engagement for these riflemen. He's trapped by 2 Flame Pioneers and 2 Volksgrenadier squads. I think he really needs to get out of there, whether it's a soft retreat down through the middle road, or whether he just does a full retreat. This is not a good place to be at all. Looks like he's trying to gather up with his friends over here, but he isn't going to be able to. He's retreating down that main road. What that might do is actually take out these mines. Well, that could be... The squad survives, as they often do on retreat. They seem to do much better There's an engagement going on here at the same time. This rifleman squad trying to run back. The riflemen survive by going single file down the side there. In the meantime, we see a Volksgrenadier squad goes down on this strategic point here and prevents the cutoff. Now that was a nice little set of engagements there for Gnug, able to even the score somewhat, taking out a Volksgrenadier squad and making sure all things get away okay. And putting in place a short-term cutoff as well. Looks like there's a unit coming out of the motor pool. Now we'll have to see what it is. Oh, he's going for the M3 half track. Now what that indicates is that he most likely if he has the munitions, he would likely go for the quad machine gun upgrade, the anti-air gun that can be used to do a great deal of damage to infantry. This unit being pushed off here. Volksgrenadier has been pushed away again, which means that Gnug may be able to put in place another cutoff here. One thing to note is that this machine gun has been used. This was another trap that a lot of people, including myself particularly, fell into in the early days of Company of Heroes 1, was powerful houses. We had the tendency to put a machine gun in there and just leave it. Just leave it there, particularly this one here, which does put in place a very effective pin on the right-hand side of the map. But the influence of that is that engagements elsewhere on the map, if the ally was able to bring their units together, they would win engagements elsewhere. Just missed here. We can see here the M3 half track has had its upgrade with the machine guns there, anti-air guns, doing a lot more damage, shooting at the house. Whoopsie daisy. That's a very powerful thing. Does a great deal of damage to infantry. Oh, takes a Panzerschreck there. Does a Panzerfaust, excuse me. Does get away. Okay, it's going to continue doing some damage at a distance. There's the choice between the M3 half track with the quad versus the M8 is something that changed quite a lot with the meta. We'll see, particularly in a few later patches, that the quad half track really was in vogue for a little while. And the main difference is that it does a little bit more damage to infantry units, but is a little bit more squishy, and doesn't have that sort of ability to push back the light vehicles of the Axis the same way that the M8 does. That may come into play here because I can see on the minimap the first Puma has come out from InuBasha. He's obviously gone for the Sturm armory and he's going to start getting out these Pumas. Now this was the absolute meta choice in early Company of Heroes. Pumas were very effective. Obviously against infantry they were particularly effective, but also with the up gun they could also hold their own against light vehicles and do a little bit of damage to tanks if necessary in a pinch. They were very popular. And unfortunately I missed the second mine going. That's a bit of a shame. I wonder what it was able to hit. I will never know. Now we'll see here that the M3 half track will take a little bit of damage from the Puma, even if unupgraded. It's not a great deal, but it will take a little bit of damage. But it doesn't have the ability to chase away this like a Stug would, for example. And vice versa, we may see that the M3 half track is able to do a tiny bit of damage to the Puma. Not really a great deal, but a tiny bit. But it won't be able to just immediately chase it away as an M8 would. Speaking of M8s, though, we do see one in the field here. Gnug has brought out the M8, which will be able to push away this Puma with ease, unless the Puma gets the upgun. One interesting thing to note about M8, blimey, looks like the quad half track missed a shot there and took down this poor farmer's garage. He won't be using that truck anytime soon. Yes, so in the early days of Company of Heroes 1, the M8 armored car was in use a lot, and particularly with the usage of Armour Company, because it was able to make the most of the raid ability. But what is important is that people didn't tend to use the side skirts upgrade. It was seen as too expensive for what it did, and people tended to run around instead, just like this. We'll go around naked and we'd prioritize using the munitions on other things, like sticky bombs and particularly the bars suppressing fire ability. It was very, very popular indeed. Now let's take another quick zoom out and see where we are on the map. This will be a bit of an awkward engagement with the Pumas will take damage from this M8, but in the meantime they may be able to do quite a bit of damage to these repairing infantry. Take out one squad up there. This Pumas do need to be a little bit careful here. They need support from a Stug or an upgun Puma if they're going to go. Oh, that's a very early. That's a very early damaged engine. That's a bit tricky. And if I'm not careful, oh, it does look like the sticky bombs have been upgraded, so that's going to be 2 Pumas that are likely to go down at this point. They may take this rifleman squad with them if they're lucky, but they are likely to go down at this point. That's a little bit wasteful, I would say. Third Puma, I wondered if this might be a Stug that could come and help with this engagement, but here's a third Puma that isn't out on the map and doing things. This cutoff is in place again, and the fuel has been lost by Gnug315. Has now got that fuel and is getting a lot of income for the first time in a while. This Pioneer squad is a little bit trouble here. No, just passing, moving past each other. Looks like one Puma has got away, got himself onto the road where even with a damaged engine you're able to move slightly faster and he can get back to base okay. A lot of Pioneers on the map at the minute, it seems like. Oh, I say that, but as one Pioneer squad does go down. Let's do a little bit of a check of the state of play here. So the Axis have 1, 2 Pioneer squads, 3 Volk squads, and 1 full health Puma and 1 low health Puma. Meanwhile, the Americans have 2 rifleman squads, 2 AT guns. Oh gosh, okay, we'll come back to that in a second. A quad half-track, an M8, and 1 engineer. So we can see both teams. Earlier I was praising them so much for their squad preservation, but it seems like that's gone down a little bit recently. Yeah, that MG was lost in the North House, so the quad half-track. Was there a rifleman go down on this point here to the Puma? Things have gone downhill a little bit in that regard, but still, certainly both teams have a little bit on the map. Now we see the quad half-track is doing the cutoff here using the Armour Company's raid ability, which lets light vehicles cap points just like infantry do. This is a very powerful thing, particularly with the M8, because it can move around so quickly and cap points like this. It's very effective for cutoffs in particular. Now, the reason I remarked a little bit on the choice of using so many AT guns is that AT guns are particularly effective against Stugs, and are, particularly in the early game, were almost necessary to use against Stugs because of their strong frontal armor. But they were notorious for completely whiffing and being ineffective against Pumas. They did not have high enough accuracy against Pumas, particularly Pumas on the move, to really pose much of a threat. So people tended not to want to use them too much, at least as the backbone of their anti-Puma army. Obviously in combination with other things like sticky bombs, an M8 or 2, and particularly M10s, they can be quite effective. But yeah, in isolation, they really weren't up to much against the Pumas. But we see the second AT gun here should get, yes, there we go, missed it unfortunately. Second AT gun here is getting a few shots off on this, on this Stug here. Another shot there, oof, that, I'm not quite sure how that missed, it seemed to bounce just beneath it. A little bit unfortunate there for Gnug, and but he is, if he's not careful, he may lose this AT gun. And the Volks Grenadiers, I think, will gladly pick that up and take it back and use it for on the Axis side. That's quite a haul for the... Okay, looks like they've elected not to take it at this point, maybe because there's no heavy armor on the field that they've yet seen. It's a bit of a strange decision there, because the PaK 38 AT gun that is can be built out of the Krieg barracks for the Wehrmacht was notoriously bad in the early games. It had a very high first shot advantage. It would do a lot of damage with that first shot from Cloak. But after that, it was seen as pretty ineffective and wouldn't really do enough to warrant its cost. So when Axis were able to get it to track down a 57mm anti-tank gun from the Allies and make it their own, that was seen as quite a coup. So leaving that there is a little bit strange. Perhaps it's just because he hasn't seen any heavy armor yet from the Allies. So he's decided he doesn't need it, and maybe he'll try and pick it up later when the inevitable Sherman Calliope come out from the armor doctrine. These Volks Grenadiers, I think, will have to be a little bit careful. They're capping under fire from a quad half-track. They will take a lot of damage indeed. Yep, does decide to get out of there rather than take on that fight. M8 is still moving around there. I think one thing you can say for Gnug is that he's been very good at keeping these alive. With the Stug on the field, that can be a little bit tricky. Stugs and Panzerfaust can do a lot of damage to these light vehicles, particularly an M8 that hasn't upgraded its armor skirts. He's done a great job of keeping those alive, keeping them in the field. The quad half-track has already got itself up to veterancy 1. That's an indication that it's done a lot of damage and taken out a few infantry as well. M8 now on the left-hand side chasing away this Puma. So a little bit careful now the Stugs come along. This is an awkward combination for it. I think it should just get out of there if possible. Does look like it'll be able to get away. This Puma here is not moving up to try and stop this capping, which it could be doing, trying to keep a nice hold on this right-hand side of the map. He's in a decent position though at the minute, resource-wise I would say. He's got the 2 high munitions points on the right-hand side of the map into his control and a +16 fuel. And meanwhile, on the left-hand side, he's been able to cut off one of the +16 munitions from the Allies and remove their access to this +16 fuel. It's not so much of a problem for the Allies as they move into the mid-game, because they will have access to those Sherman Calibres, which didn't cost fuel and didn't require taking to the tank depot. But nevertheless, you always want that fuel, perhaps to get access to things like bars, the bar upgrade for your infantry. Yeah, or for supply out upgrades to keep your manpower high. Although supply out upgrades were not popular at this stage of the game. Volksgrenadier on the right hand side trying to chase away this engineer squad. It's coming over to decap. Meanwhile, on the left hand side, we see the M8 continuing to move around, hoping to push off these Volksgrenadiers. In the meantime, these 2 AT guns are being used to kind of lock down that left hand side and prevent the Axis armor coming in. I would be a little bit worried about moving the 2 AT guns up to shoot this at the same time. This Puma could easily flank across. Oh, the M8 does go down near that point there. Good one, unfortunately, looked like a Panzerfaust and Stug combination was in play. Stug is having to reverse away, does manage to get away here. Yeah, you can see that if the bars have now been upgraded for the riflemen. I will show you very quickly here the bars. Actually, in the early versions of the game, they would get 3 bars with the upgrade, hence why you see there's 3 there. Oh, this Stug will need to get out of there quickly with this AT gun pointing at it. Big trouble. Oh, it does go down, and as does the Volksgrenadier squad that was over here now, and the Sherman Calibres coming at the same time. Now, this is could be a big turnaround, an opportunity for a big turnaround for the Axis. This is another Pioneer squad there. In the meantime, he's being cut off over here by the M3 half track. Just now got itself up to veterancy 2 and can really do a lot of damage to the building, to that machine gun, even though it's in the house. Yes, we're quickly going back to the. Oh, now the Puma goes down too. This is a huge turnaround for the Allies. They'll be very pleased with this. Yes, so today as we play the game, when the Allies get the bar upgrade, it provides 2 members of the squad with a BAR. But in the old days, what it used to do was upgrade 3 of them with a BAR, as you can see here. And they were just slightly less effective as individual weapons. So the bars were still very effective overall as an upgrade. In fact, it's even slightly more powerful than they are today. Hence, they were nerfed in the meantime. But the individual bars today, like, they kind of keep their firepower for longer because the last 2 members of the squad will both have access to the bars and the full firepower they. This is an interesting move. Oh! I think I hear a firestorm. Yep, here comes a firestorm. Down on these 2 infantry units. And it might fall and just catch these AT2. Looks like it doesn't, but it could be 2 dead rifleman squads if he's not careful. Oh, 1 rifleman squad does go down. 1 is able to survive. So far at least, but we'll have to see if he doesn't accidentally run into that MG. This could be big trouble. I think Gnug has been really quite aggressive here, bringing up. Looks like he's trying to take out this bunker, so he's able to bring up his AT guns and hopefully do some damage to whatever comes out of this Panzer Command, which he can see with the wafting of these things. He can see that something is being built at the minute. I think the last few minutes have really turned this in the favour of the Allies. There's been so many units lost here. We have 1 Puma raiding the base, which is quite a challenge, but in the meantime, this Calliope is a Panzer IV that comes out now. And unfortunately, the AT guns are not quite yet set up. They're able to start doing damage to the Calliope, which is still attacking this bunker before. Got a bit of a first shot advantage there, although that second shot does miss. Now these 2 AT guns moving down there, and we'll hope to start doing some damage to that Panzer IV. 1 shot does connect, but it bounces off, unfortunately. Now there's 2 AT guns very close to each other here. The Panzer IV has decided to run away, which I think is probably a wise idea at this stage. In the meantime, in the Allies base, we see a Puma has hidden itself behind the back of this HQ, is doing some damage there. Did manage to kill the engineer squad that was in there, but a second Sherman Calliope is coming to the field. has a damaged engine because of this mine that InuBasha put there, just waiting for it. But isn't going to be able to chase. Isn't going to be able to, which doesn't mean he isn't going to be able to get to the middle of the map anytime soon. But still, this is a lot of units in InuBasha's base. It's going to take out this Vermac quarters very quickly. It would seem. Just one thing I wanted to show you quickly is how interesting the models are for the buildings. Clearly, Relic didn't spend quite as much time looking at the back of these buildings as they did at the front. At least it's the case for the Axis. That's the same for the Panzer Command. Sturm Armory is the same. And at the Vermac quarters, they're all rather simpler on the backside, which wouldn't be seen from the default view. See, an Ostwind has come out now. An Ostwind is an interesting choice here because I think InuBasha is going to need some more damage on the field. It does do very well against light vehicles, so it takes that down. But it isn't up to much against the heavy armor, such as the Sherman Calliopes. It's an incredibly powerful anti-infantry weapon, however, and actually does good damage to buildings. Now, one of the reasons it was so powerful in the early days of the game is because it's... Oh! Does look like... I'm very sorry to have missed this, but it looks like the second Sherman Calliope hit another mine here and has now been ambushed by this Panzer IV, and it will likely go down, I would think. It's done some damage before it does go down, but it's not long for this. Oh, destroyed engine, another critical there. It's staying alive a little longer than they would have hoped. One AT gun has moved over here and has got a shot through there. The second Calliope, or the third Calliope even, using its barrage ability. The Panzer IV is down to really quite low health here. He's going to have to be very careful with a single Pioneer to try and keep that alive as long as possible. I wouldn't want to engage with this immediately. In the meantime, the Ostwind just runs straight for the base and will use its high anti-infantry abilities to just take out as much as it can there. We're really getting to the stage here where it's very few units against very few units. Very few units against very few units on each team. My earlier praise about the unit preservation is being thrown back in my face once more. We now see both people are basically cut off from all resources and have resorted to attacking the bases, although Gnug has come back from, come away from InuBasha's base for the time being. See the supply yard go down, which will lower the income somewhat for the allies here, lower the manpower income, because it does lower the upkeep cost of certain units, infantry units in particular, although there isn't many of those on the field right now. In fact, there is 0 for the allies. You see some good battles here. One Calliope may go down if it's not careful. Some good micro moving around the back of this headquarters. It may not be enough though. But to see that that Panzer IV does go down, as does the Ostwind. So that's very good work. He's managed to keep like 2 Sherman Calliopes for the loss of his supply yard. So if he can heal up these Calliopes as soon as he can, bring forward these AT guns, is going to be really big trouble. But we see the Tiger Ace, the most powerful tank in the game at the start of Vanilla Company of Heroes. The Tiger Ace was effectively the same as the Blitz Tiger in those days, but how the Blitz Tiger would be if it had 3 veterancy, triple veterancy. It was an extremely powerful unit, a lot of HP, I believe around 1500 HP, which takes a long time to get out, believe me. And unlike the King Tiger that we see today, it still has that speed of the Blitz Tiger, making it very, very tricky to deal with. And I'm not sure that these Calliopes are going to be able to take out on their own. The AT guns have now moved away. They're now leaving that Calliope on its own in the base. We do see a bunch of single Pioneer squads here moving out to the map, trying to get some capping done. Well, the Tiger Ace is now pushing in hard, and this Calliope is high on health, or it's getting back to high on health, but these engineer squads, one of the great advantages of the Tiger Ace is it did a lot of splash damage, so repairing squads like this would take an enormous amount of damage if they were focus fired, which we may see here shortly. We see another cut off by this rifleman squad that's just come out. The AT guns are slowly making their way back, although it seems like they've both been, only one of them has been lost to the Pioneers, and the Tiger Ace here deciding to move in, and rather than simply attacking and shooting the engineers, it looks like it's trying to run them over. Not as adept at that as the M10s, for example, but does a decent job nevertheless. This is going to be a tricky one. It's a big moment here, I think. We can see that he's trying to use the Tiger Ace to distract and bring all the other units back to the base, meanwhile using pioneers elsewhere on the map to recap and get those resources flooding in again. Said that this Tiger Ace has now got a damaged engine from that sticky bomb, that homing sticky bomb that we see there. Oh, but that's another big shot from the Tiger Ace. It really does do an enormous amount of damage. I think if I was Gnug right now, I'd be trying to save up some munitions and make sure I had access to that Calliope barrage when the time is right, or maybe even using armor piercing rounds on the AT gun. This Tiger Ace really does take a lot of damage. It takes a lot to take it out. It does seem like he's really going to commit here, sending another Calliope around the back to try and prevent the retreat. Oh, and he's using the Calliope barrage. Meanwhile, will take out the Pioneer squad most likely, doing an awful lot of damage to his own Calliope there. That will now probably go down. It's going to be very difficult for him to finish it off from here because the Tiger Ace's frontal armor is so strong. I'm not sure this on its own is going to be able to handle it. Engineers going in and doing what they can with their grease guns, but I'm not sure that's going to be quite enough to take it out. The shot does penetrate from the Calliope there. The AT gun is moving up on this side of the hedge. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Gnug try and dive this sometime soon. It's 1,000 manpower, or it was 1,000 manpower for the Tiger Ace back in the day, and taking it out is an enormous boon, especially given that the Sherman Calipis themselves were only around 500 manpower, I believe. Maybe 550. I'll check that. You see the Calliope here doing what I thought would be the whole of the Tiger Ace itself earlier, moving in and trying to take out a few of these repairing pioneers. This is going to trick it. Oh, I think that InuBasha actually deleted his own Vermont quarters there to prevent the circle strafe attempts of the Sherman Calliope. Now the Tiger Ace should, yes, exactly that maneuver there. Unlike the Stug, which can be effectively circle strafe quite easily, even without engine damage, the Tiger Ace is quick enough that if you just rely on the turret turning around, you can be circle strafe. But if you're able to reverse and turn the turret at the same time, you are able to prevent yourself from being circle strafe there, unless you have a destroyed engine completely. Aha! Now here comes the big bad boy from the Allied side here. The M26 Pershing comes from right at the end of the armor tree. Does a great deal of damage. It's doesn't quite one-on-one live up to the damage of the Tiger Ace, but certainly with a little bit of support can hold its own. That's decent frontal armor. It's an enormous amount of damage. We see a lot of pioneers going down here. Just really invested into these repairs, but is seeing as pioneers go down very quickly. That's 120 manpower per squad that's going down. Big deflection there. The Calliope, if it's able to do a barrage here, could really turn the tide. In the meantime, we see another Austrian flak panzer taking out infantry. Tick back over here. The Calliope comes in to try and flank. The AT gun is lending in its damage as well from the side here. The Calliope is taking out the repairing squads. Meanwhile, the Pershing is using its frontal armor to good effect. Actually, I'm seeing a lot more deflections than I expected to see here. Although, speaking of deflections, we see 3 more there from the Tiger Ace. Calliope now retreating, and we do see the rocket barrage. The Tiger is losing a lot of health. Looks like not all of those did connect. The Pershing looks like it's trying to go in for the kill here, and there it is. The Tiger Ace goes down, and the M26 Pershing gets itself up to double vet. Oh, does sound like we have a firestorm going off somewhere. Firestorm going off on the base here, and Austrian flak panzer is doing a great deal of damage to the base. Actually, the Allies, despite being really on top in terms of the amount of armor on the field, are actually in danger here of being annihilated if they're not careful. This Austrian flak panzer doing just a great deal of damage to buildings. We'll be able to take down that headquarters. Now we've got to these. Now the Austrian flak panzer, one of the things that made it so powerful, I believe I started to say this earlier, was that its reload time was so low, allowing it to do an awesome amount of damage against buildings and infantry with very low reload times. Now it's only got a tiny little bit of health there, but it's able to take up this barracks, so if another firestorm is able to go down, that could have spelt curtains. It's not to be, though. The M26 Pershing comes back and gets itself up to triple vet. Now that will really be a nightmare to take out for the Allies. We'll have all those offensive benefits that comes with the veterancy for the Allies, and I think could spell the end here. We see one Calliope and the AT gun and the Pershing all moving forward now. In the meantime, we only see Pioneers on the field. 1, 2, 3, 4. Seems to be 3, I believe, Pioneer squads for the Axis. This does not look good to me at all. It's interesting to see it moving forward with these Pioneers. It looks like it's just trying to delay a little bit with these Pioneers, perhaps distract units to keep them away from his base and coming in and trying to annihilate him. He's also using the Pioneer's salvage ability to take some munitions out of this, perhaps to be able to use a couple more firestorms, which will very quickly take down this barracks. This looks looks extremely bad, I would say, for the Axis at this point, without any units on the field that can fight this. But the threat of annihilation is always there. I would be extremely careful if I was Gnug at this stage. I'd be sending some engineers back, getting the off-map engineers, shipment to get my HQ back up as soon as possible. It's a little bit tricky. I would say that Gnug is in the box seat, absolutely, and should be the favourite here, but he's got to be careful. Now, the other thing of note here is that I believe when the game first came out, that Tiger races were not limited to one in the same way that the King Tiger is today. I believe you could call in another one if you had the 1,000 manpower. So, looking at this, I mean, obviously this looks very bad, but if he's able to bring in another Tiger race, we saw how powerful it was before. This Pershing, triple vet or no triple vet, could be in trouble at this low health. And especially with the, if there is a firestorm available. Oh, the AT gun goes down too. That could have been so helpful. This is an absolute hero Pioneer coming in here, taking out that AT gun. That could have done a lot of damage to the Tiger race and perhaps stopped it. Having said that, Storm Armory is going down. If I was Gnug, I would have been focusing the headquarters first rather than the Panzer Command and the Storm Armory. You know that you can handle anything coming out of that, but if the HQ goes down first, then the Axis would have been unable to call in the Tiger race. And then they could have handled the Panzer Command and Storm Armory later and completed the annihilation. It's very interesting to see. He's not building anything. He's not building any more Pioneers. He's just using this single unit that's out on the map here. Looks like it may go down too. And it's all a matter of time to see whether the Tiger race will come out in time to prevent the annihilation. This is very... And here it is! The Tiger race comes out on the map, and is it going to be just in time to save the headquarters? It's going to be difficult. The single Pioneer squad now moves back and it starts to repair. Meanwhile, the Pershing and... the Pershing and the Calliope both try to move around the Tiger race to get those rear armor hits. There's one from the Pershing. It's a huge amount of damage. Out of control on the Calliope. The Calliope goes down. Pershing. Now this is going to be a huge battle here between these two. Whoever comes out on top here, it looks like it will be the Tiger race. It looks like it's tries to try and take out the Pioneer. He does take out one group of Pioneers, and the second one comes out. The engine destroyed now, so he's not going to be able to get away and heal itself. The Jeep now comes out for the Allies. I mean, I guess the Jeep is a good unit in some ways, and then it's able to cap with the raid ability. But this now, I think absolutely you have to say that the game has swung around completely, and the Axis have got to be the favourites to win here. All the Tiger race has to do is run straight to the opponent's base and take out the barracks, and that's it. Because he can also sit on the HQ and make sure that no engineers come out and heal it, and allow Gnug to send in any more Calliopes or Pershings, even if he has the manpower to do so. It strikes me that this has really been thrown away by Gnug, and InuBasha might take the win. Now, it's not absolutely certain that's going to happen. Of course, you could see if you can get the off-map engineer group in and do enough sticky bombs on this, you may be able to just about take this out, but I can't see it happening at the minute. I think this is going to go down very quickly indeed. The 4 rifleman squads, I think, will chase this Tiger race down and try to sort of like chased it away from the barracks, and InuBasha is in fact going back. I am. Perhaps he didn't realise that he was only, I would say, 2 or 3 shots away from finishing off the game. I mean, I guess they do say it's better to be safe than sorry. And he's got the cut off here. Although I think at this stage it's not important. Actually, isn't even a full cut off because of the surround wall. What a very strange way to end the game here. These these rifleman squads chasing down a tiger race. It actually may even be that the tiger race is just trying to distract the rifleman for as long as he can and then drive back around and get into the base. When the riflemen have chased it out onto the map. This is an absolute blockbuster ending, I would say. The tiger race has just got to get in there, finish this off. InuBasha, Gnug315, still hasn't got the off-map engineer group to help rebuild his base. And I really think he's not long for this world. One sticky bomb goes down. Goes onto the tiger race and does a good amount of damage there. If he had all 4 squads here, and here they come, it's going to be absolute. It's going to be very tight. If he gets destroyed main gun critical, this could be huge. He needs a couple more sticky bombs. What's going to go down first? And it is the barracks. Now that, I hope you'll agree, was a bit of a blockbuster game, a little bit better in terms of the quality of play than we saw in the earlier matches. And I hope you'll agree that was a very, very exciting finish. You'd have to say that both people had their opportunities to win this game, and it absolutely could have been Gnug's game if he'd been a little bit more aggressive in taking out that headquarters when he had the opportunity. But yeah, you know, especially in the early days of the game, these sorts of finishes were pretty rare. So I don't really blame him at all for not being completely on top of things when it came to the very late end game there. At any rate, I hope it was an exciting game for you to watch. It was certainly, I had a great time casting it for you. And yep, please leave a comment if you enjoyed the game and any games you might like to see going forward. And thank you very much for taking the time to tune in and watch Company of Heroes History. Bye bye.